Welcome y bienvenidos to Presently Aqui, a podcast created just for you, a place for tools, insights, and a gentle guidance to nurture your self love journey. Together, we'll connect with extraordinary healers from around the world, uncovering the wisdom and unique gifts they share to help us healthier. To help us lead healthier and more loving lives, beginning with ourselves. And today I have a beautiful guest. Her name is Sunshine, as she is. She's got this beautiful light. And Sunshine is a trailblazing psychic medium, soul healer, spiritual advisor, high priestess, Reiki Master, and recovering alcoholic known as the pink haired sober witch. Her mission is to help highly motivated witches in recovery rediscover our magic, all of our magic, align with our highest purpose, and live the abundant promise in sobriety. I love it. Welcome, Sunshine.
Thanks, Claudia. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Yeah, as soon as I went into your bio and stuff, and I was like, oh, I love her. I love this mission that you got going on. And, as I'm reading off your bio, I'm like, you're just an alchemist, basically. You're able to heal, alchemize, and we're going to get into your journey. So I'm so excited. So today we're going to talk about, obviously, witchcraft. So let's get into that stigma, that word, right? It's especially now in times, which kind of gives us a little PTSD from the past. But we'll get into that too. So let's talk about witchcraft, right? So in your experience, because you've been in this field for, that's something that you're born with. And it's a part of you. So for the listeners who are in a space where they're mostly just hear witchcraft, what it programming, right, from the mainstream of what they think witchcraft is, but let us hear what Sunshine's take is, really what witchcraft is about.
To answer that, I first have to introduce what I believe is my philosophy of a witch, what makes a
Mm,
witch,
mm,
right? Because the doing of that witch is the craft,
that's
okay? And so for me, there is kind of three pillars that make up a witch. The first one is the belief in the practice of psychic arts, right? So this is using divination, their psychic abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, however you want to say, using the extrasensory perceptives that every single one of us have been born with,
right.
but a witch is literally actively using it within their everyday to day life. The second pillar is the belief in the practice of magic, right? And magic to me, and there's a handful of definitions out there, but the simplest way to look at that is leveraging using energy
Mm,
to be able to bring change into the world. Right? So the use of energy to bring change into the world. So a witch is actively going to be doing magic and working with energy intentions in order to bring about change. And the third one, and this is where I think, some people may differ. I think most people are going to agree to the first two,
mm,
right? This third one for me is where some people may differ. But my belief, my philosophy of a witch, is that we were born and we walk this earth in order to be of service. We are here to be of service to the world around us. And it could be as simple as being the mother that's caring for and tending to their family,
mm.
or it could be an individual that is literally living a mission of change and transformation and making a huge impact within the world, right? Um, it all gamuts, but we are here to be of service.
Truly. And why do people, or you've come across your third philosophy, why do you feel people don't really reciprocate with being of service? I'm really interested in that because I agree
I,
with you.
I do think that there are some people that their own personal journeys have caused that, like have stuck them into the shadow that is a bit more egocentric and selfish, right? For whatever journey they're
Right,
on,
right,
they are there to do for themselves,
right.
right? They're there to do for themselves. And to me, they'll stick a stake in the ground and they'll argue that third one day. And they'll probably have some really great rational reasons behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any, but they'll come up with whatever means that they can to argue that it's not part of what
Right.
makes a witch.
That makes sense. I don't know if you ever read The Law of One. It's kind of in that space. It talks about service to self and service to others, and we know service to others will lead you back into union, and then service to self will just keep you in this karmic reincarnation space over and over until you realize that you are here for others because you are others. It's
I mean, that's a perfect sentiment there is, when you as an individual start to embrace the cosmic belief
mm,
of, the collective consciousness, and we are all one, then
right,
what we do unto ourselves, we are doing unto others, right? So
right,
you can make that's an argument some can make, but
hmm,
what you do unto others, you
right,
actually get to reap and sow the benefits of.
truly.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
I don't think anybody would the law of ones, I think that's a great example. I didn't even think
Mm,
about that one, but that is an absolute that
I
is
love
talked
them.
about, it is
Hmm.
shared. And I forget what the percentage is, but it's something, isn't it like 90% of people have
Hmm.
to be in the, like, all,
Yes,
for themselves,
right.
right?
It,
Yeah. It's
it's a big number. It's an interesting law. The law of one is just so powerful, and for anyone who's interested, it's on YouTube, in pieces, 15-minute clips, because that's all
Yeah.
you can like digest at a time
Yep.
because it's so dense, but so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Um, so let's get into, okay, so we have also herself, ourselves are, I feel like now in modern times, now we're here in modern times, it's more the oracle, right? Because it's sad because the word oracle brings a different feeling, right? Versus the witch, right? And now I'm realizing as we're speaking, what I'm thinking is why, because even saying the word witch has that stigma that we talked about. But I think that that wound of the witch wound is deep from, obviously centuries and on, that it hasn't been healed because even the word is so still in 2025, like, but
Process.
yet,
Yeah.
but yet
An
you,
emotional response. Yeah.
oh, or an attack, or you're a witch, right? No one's
There's a
gonna.
beautiful there's a
No, please.
beautiful book by the author Pam Grossman called
Mm,
Waking the Witch, and she goes into this big, long, kind of like historical look in the talk and
mm,
in that discussion of how it is
mm,
even used as
mm,
a curse, a
mm,
slur towards
mhm,
women, right?
mhm,
And,
mhm.
I think this is part of the reason why, for me, I have embraced it. It took me a minute on my
Yeah,
journey, right? I've
same.
always identified as a witch, but it took me a minute on my journey
Yeah.
before my guides were like, stop hiding it, proclaim the title of it,
Mhm.
and show that it's okay,
Right,
right? Show what it truly means to be,
right.
because at the end of the day, if we allow people to keep weaponizing the word,
Yeah,
then it truly, there's a bit of magic that it loses.
right. Truly, truly, because any slur, derogative word has that. And we know the most popular one, right, is with the Black community, and they don't realize that even if I say it to you in a derogatory space, I'm also hurting myself, right? And so the same goes with any word in that space. It's the same, and it needs to, words are spells. I know we say this, but this is true. And it's important to really sit with that. Every woman is a witch, to be quite frank, every single one. And one thing that I've noticed in modern times, that we now separate what type of witch. Are you a green witch? Are you a tech witch? Are you this witch? What kind of, like, now it has categories, right? To sort of be able to digest this woman.
It is, I've had conversations around labels with a handful of folks, and so I have a
Mm,
perspective on labels. I believe that they're helpful for people to be able to recognize somebody that they can connect with, and they have something in common. So we say we're a green witch or a tech witch or a kitchen witch
hmm.
because we're hoping to be able to identify with other individuals,
Truly.
right? we're hoping to be able to see something in them.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I describe myself as a gray eclectic ritual witch,
Mm.
right? And so I walk neither,
Right.
I don't believe in the concept so much of good or bad when it comes
Right.
to magic,
Right.
right? And eclectic, I will pull from wherever my guides tell me to pull from. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter,
Mm-hmm.
from a
Mm-hmm.
chaos to a kitchen to,
Right.
hedge witch, does not matter.
Right.
And ritual, I love to engage in, like, I don't know, maybe it's my Catholic upbringing,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
that there's any ritual that is more widely known than a Catholic mass. It truly is a
Yes.
very, very ritualistic,
Very much
event.
so.
But yeah, just that practice of being able to repeat and be deep into something. So for me personally, that's how I identify, but I
Right.
believe it's everybody grasps onto certain flavors
Right.
because they can identify themselves in someone else then.
Truly. And now, as you're saying that, because I also was raised in the Catholic Church, but left it as a teenager, but had instead be a priest run it because it's a man, right? So it's not seen as a ritual. But if it was a woman running the space in a church,
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. I like so it in the order of the, like, the Golden Dawn, these, like, very magician magical type of, orders and fraternities, they have in essence what they refer to as the Gnostic Mass, which is replicated off
Mhm.
of the Catholic Mass, and there is a woman in a very powerful role in it. Oh yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, no, if you had a woman standing up there behind the altar and, doing these things, they would.
Lose their mind, lose their
Oh
mind.
my gosh, yeah.
And on the other side of that coin, how blessed people would leave church, like the love that they would feel because it's a woman in a sacred geometry architecture as she is unraveling her oracle self with the community. How powerful. But that's the fear of
Yeah. Oh
us.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, that's been the fear that the when we look back at where the witch started to become demonized, it
Hmm.
became with the rise of the church.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. It became with
Right.
the rise of the church
Right.
because, the church said, here is an individual, and it's a man, but, they're
Right.
saying, here's an individual, and they were given the power, and the connection
Mm-hmm.
between God and this hierarchy
Right.
where feminine ruled, and the divine feminine spirituality says, no, it is truly in us. We
Mm-hmm.
wield the power. We have the ability to create, like,
Mm-hmm.
we and so we threatened them. We threatened their entire,
Right.
you know
And
commercial, what, no, capitalistic,
capitalistic, yes. And it's
yeah,
not so
capitalistic.
much, I don't want the listeners out there to think that we're attacking men. It's the ignorance that we're attacking, the ignorance that overshadowed the woman, the female, the divinity, the oracle, the witch. It just, it's because there was such brainwashing and the masculine was so susceptible to that space.
Masculine energy has, it just in general, we're not even talking man versus woman, we're talking
Hmm.
masculine versus feminine
Right.
energy. And masculine energy does have an energetic of more, aggression,
Mhm.
dominance. It's just how it
Right,
is, and
right,
it
right.
needs the balance of the feminine in order
Yes.
to not go out of control,
Mhm, mhm.
right? But that the church did. The church removed the woman, removed the
Right.
feminine. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it has nothing to do with men,
Right. It has
right?
nothing to do with men.
But the corruption of that masculine energy
Hmm.
for, for power.
For power. Yes, for power, greed, on and on and on. And it's a sad space, and this is a beautiful conversation that I feel that needs to be had and continue to shed light on a space like this because Again, I'm sure, have you noticed, again, back to the oracle word, how women are embracing that, and a lot of the false lights are pretending to be, this like almost like Mary Magdalene or Virgin Mary, like presence, like I am like this white thing, you know what I mean? Versus like you're saying, you're in the neutral space, right? Because it's both, right? And but I don't want to confused listener. I just want to specify by when you're able to be in the neutral space, law. Law is so important to know. You have to know the laws of the universe, the laws of the craft, the laws, period, and how it corresponds with your life and your karma and the things that you're here to do in order to be able to be in that space. You can't just, as you know, the only way that witchcraft has been modernized recently is on TikTok. All these young girls selling how to get back at your ex type of situations. I went on TikTok and I don't have TikTok. I just was like, oh, what's in here? And that's all I saw. And I wanted to get your take on it. I was like, oh my God, so much of this.
I'm not on TikTok, but I hang out on Facebook, and I'm in
Mm,
a lot of different witchcraft groups, and it is a very distinctive. But I think back to like when I first started to engage in magic,
yeah.
it was very external focused.
Mm-hmm.
How can I get the man? How can I get the job?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get this? How can I get this, right? And
Right.
that is an egoed operative, you know, thing, right?
Right.
And so I don't know that it's just today. I do think that if we were to roll back 20 years ago when,
Mm,
I was in my 20s, go 30
right.
years ago when I was in my teens, I still looked at the world as something I needed to accomplish,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Versus through experience, learning and realizing that in order to have all of that to be happy with the things that I have to be happy in here first,
Yes.
right? I have to have healed this. I have to have recognized this. And I think that's the challenge
Mm,
where, you're bringing up this whole, the oracles that are all in the light, because
yeah.
when you have convinced yourself
Mm, mm,
that you're in the light and that's
mm-hmm.
where you need to be,
Mm-hmm.
that often means that you've never faced or grown through the things that lingered in your darkness.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that because that's
Mhm.
exactly what that is. And it's so important. You can't the balanced, which is both, is not one or the other. And again, we're in spaces where people feel like they need to be either all left or all right, all light or all dark, right? And it's the same aspect, right? If you're all dark, then you never face your light. It's one or the other. So um tell me a little bit about your right, you're discovering your inner witch yourself, right? Because again, it's, gosh, saying the word is so, it takes away from your essence, right? It's just like, and in this conversation we're just gonna keep putting light into this beautiful word, the witch with a capital W. um how is that essence, as you're approaching and learning more about yourself, did that coincide with your sobriety, your alcoholism? How did that help you come into space?
Yeah. So I go back to, since I was a teen,
Mm,
I practiced witchcraft, so to speak. Um, teens, 20s. And
right.
when I was in my 30s, though, I was married, and my ex husband now belittled me
Mm,
for being a witch, made fun
mm,
of me, ridiculed me, and in essence took someone who I'd say at one point I was out of the broom closet, shoved me
mm,
back in, and
mm.
he didn't lock it. I locked it so that nobody else could get in and see
Right,
it.
right.
Right. And so I was very successful in my 30s in my career and life and everything that if you had a list of all of the things that you should accomplish as a
Mhm.
successful adult, I
Right.
had them all.
Mm.
But I wasn't happy. I was miserable, and I was maddening myself. And
Mm.
so I admitted I was an alcoholic, and it was about within 30 days of being in recovery, like for after the second relapse for the year, I was decided to step into AA, and I'm listening to these people around these tables start to talk about spirituality and a
Mm.
higher power and
Mm.
all of these things. And so I really start to do this like deep reflection. And I remember talking to my therapist about this as well of
Mhm. Mhm.
what is my spirituality? What do I believe in?
Right.
Right? Like what has fed my soul, my spirit the most?
Mm.
And at the end of the day, it was my belief in my psychic abilities,
Mhm.
my belief in magic,
Mm.
right? And my belief that I truly had a purpose
Yeah.
in this world that wasn't working in a corporate job,
Mhm.
slinging a bunch of, dotted, dotting I's and crossing T's,
Right.
uh, that my purpose was bigger.
Right.
And yeah, I still to this day, and will, shout it from the mountaintops. I would not be celebrating over 5 years in recovery if I had
Mhm.
not only recognized that, but
Yeah.
embraced it and started to incorporate these practices in my every single day life.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's so powerful. That's so powerful. As you coming into your journey, right? With coming into self and letting go of this addiction, right? To cope with reality, right? Did you eventually see because that's the shadow aspect, right? Alcoholism, right? And the shadow entities that live in that space. Were you able to see them as you kept moving closer into, right?
Oh my. There's
Mm,
all sorts of things that came out. The two biggest that
mm,
I've realized as I've been able to look back is one, I believe those of us that truly, have not just have the witch. I think I agree. We all have the witch inside of us,
hmm.
but are supposed to be activating it,
Right.
waking it up.
Yes.
That we are highly sensitive, very empathic, and because of that, uh, many of us will
Mm,
choose addiction. And that could be
mm-hmm.
drugs, alcohol, that could be sex, that could be chaos and drama and codependency in
Shopping.
order to, yeah, in
Hmm.
order to quiet and numb out all of that extra sensory,
Right.
that's going on. The second thing that I've come to see is what you're leaning towards. Many addictions
Mm.
come with a low vibrational attachment,
Hmm.
something that has latched on,
Right.
that is like, almost has the straw in them, just sucking out every bit
Hmm.
of their life force.
Hmm.
My partner and I are both in recovery, and it was about 3 months in when we started dating and we opening up more about our own journeys that we made the realization that at some point both of us personified our addiction and
Hmm.
could
Mm.
literally see our
Mm.
drinking demon.
Yeah.
And that was a huge shift in us continuing to stay on recovery. And still to this day, I was talking with a very dear friend of mine earlier. She was over my house and she's telling me about an old friend of hers that contacted her and was threatening suicide.
Mm.
And she's talking about they're in addiction, they're an addict now, and that's one of the reasons they haven't talked to them in like 5 or 6 years. But
Yeah.
now this, and I was like, I was like, I can see it. I can
Hmm.
see this attachment,
Hmm. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
they're about to drive 6 hours away to help this person. And I said, are they willing to help themselves first?
Right. Right.
I said,
Exactly.
because you're walking into a literal, you know, energetic attachment that does not want to let go of her. And
Right.
if she's not ready,
Mm-hmm.
I said, then it's going to break your heart.
Right.
It's going to
Mm-hmm.
break your heart.
Right. Because imagine if people would see it, right? It would show up as, let's say this Mike is the person I'm trying to save, right? And this person's not ready and I'm the attachment. I'm laughing at you. I'm like, well, this person hasn't agreed to let me go. So you can do whatever you want. But I'm enjoying this very much. Right? If people could see, I think about that all the time. Like, if people could see the attachments, you would be blown away of I tell people, I'm like, even your little things that you think are nothing, if you're a jealous person, that's one. If you're, the seven deadly sins are named for a reason. And they,
Oh, yeah.
yes, there's gluttony and sloth, but they actually have demonic names, right? They actually have
Yep.
real names. So if
Oh,
you
yeah, they do.
see them, right? I love how you said that. Like, to see that, I'm sure you were like, okay, and I'm good.
This is why I do this work. And
Mm.
I've had conversations with people that, like, the work I do is dangerous.
Uh-huh.
As somebody that is in recovery, it is dangerous for me to be actively around, people that are suffering from their addictions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
struggling to get out,
Truly.
potentially relapsing,
Yes.
right? I can see that little demon
Yeah.
just sitting there waiting for that
Uh-huh.
moment where my energetic is low enough that it can leech
Yeah.
onto me, right?
Sunshine, remember when we would drink like this? You remember? Like that, right? It's the tiniest whisper. When you remember, we had so much
I'm
fun.
like, you want
Right?
to know where it shows up?
Mm.
This is, and those folks that are in recovery are familiar with talking about it.
Right.
Like, takes
Yeah.
all the control away. Um, I travel by myself every now and again,
Mm.
and I will walk into, like, it'd be in an Airbnb, and I'll walk into the grocery store, to
Right.
grab my food for the weekend. And the moment I walk into that grocery store, I'll hear, "No one would know if you drink,"
Uh-huh.
and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"What? What?
It's so crazy.
What?
Yes.
I would know. I
Right.
would know.
I would
I
know.
wouldn't be able to deal, like, oh my, yeah,
But
it's
it's so subtle, and even that line, right? No one would know that you would drink, right? And that's a trick. That's a trickery, right? That line itself, because the point is that it's your integrity, that I would know, but the person who's not strong in the foundational of
yeah.
self, no one would know. That just no one would know is enough to be like, well, that's kind of true, but that line is not a they're not that attachment is not trying to say that no one would. It's trying to just trick you back into the space so they can keep looshing you, right? It has nothing to do with no one would watch you, right? It's just more like, I want you back because this light that you have is so scrumptious. So,
So I've shared this with people, and, Claudia, I'm familiar. I guess you would know. I don't know if all your
mm,
listeners, about the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life,
yes. Mm-hmm.
right? And there is also the absolute mirrored, which is the Clippereth, right? So if you can
Mm-hmm,
reach
mm-hmm.
Kether, right, you can
Right.
reach all the way down. And what I have been told is the moment you start to climb the tree of life is
Mm-hmm.
just as far as you can fall down. And
Mm-hmm.
those entities and energetics that sit down below, they're all trying to grab for you.
The
They're
higher
trying
you
to pull
go.
you.
Mm-hmm,
Oh
mm-hmm,
yeah, trying to pull you
mm-hmm.
right back down. I literally had a client, so sorry, so like, gut wrenching. They had their daughter committed suicide this past year,
Mm-hmm.
and they did this beautiful, beautiful memorial, 13 acts of kindness. They printed
Mm-hmm.
out all of these little postcards to distribute throughout their local area with, like,
Right.
this request to do an act of kindness. And my guides came forward and said, you better tell these people to start protecting themselves,
Mm. Mhm.
because they just introduced something beautiful into the world. And the law of duality says if something beautiful is introduced, there's also something trying to get it.
Truly, truly. And it's so important to know laws again. even the seven hermetic principles, right? It's just, that's just like the easiest space to start to know dualities. It's so important. I love how you brought that, because I have experience, and I have even I did DMT 3 years ago, about to be 4, and I went so high that you dropped as fast. I obviously was not experienced in the space, but I was in such a high that when I fell to, that was my lesson. I was like, wow, you have to have the balance. You can't go too much here and too much here, because it's the equilibrium, the balance of life. It's gonna do it itself, with or without you. So you have to know, yes, you can come here, but just no plan for the opposite,
Yeah.
right? And that's the space that I learned, and I'm very grateful for that moment, because I will never forget the drop down. I was like, oh, uh, but I learned so much about my shadow aspect as well, and being able to look at it without fear, and being able to, right, as you know, just be um what's the word, kind of like embody it, like, yeah, now I see it, and that is part of me, and you can't take that away, and no, you can't play with it, because I see it, and I accept this space in me, right? Because that's also part of, I'm sure, sobriety is acceptance, because if you're not accepting parts of yourself, believe you me, someone's watching and looking at the spaces.
Yeah, there is nothing more dangerous for an individual in recovery than shame and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't
Yes.
accept something of yourself, the emotional response is often shame.
Often. And I call them shame monsters. I try to tell my clients, I'm like, you have no idea how clever the shame monsters are. Very clever. They will sneak in. You have to, that's why mindfulness is so important. You have to be so self aware that you, like, oh, well, I didn't even think you're going to show up like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's important. But I wanted to mention something too. While we've been recording, the crows have been outside dancing, doing their thing. It's been beautiful. I'm like, oh, love them. They're here with us. Crow energy is so protective, and
Very much.
they love us, the intuitives. They're like, ooh, yes, here's a message. Here's why we're here. Ooh, get all excited. I love them. But yes, right. So it's so important, the acceptance and seeing, and I think that's also probably why a lot of people are afraid to tap into their psychic abilities, right? To be able to see, it's not until you face your shadow that you can see, because even like you're saying, the work you do is dangerous when you are in this recovery space, because, not to say you're not strong, you've done so much work, and but because it was a big part of you for a moment, that it's like the tethering, right? Slowly it's loosening, but there's still tethering,
I'm still
right?
a human. I'm
Right,
still a human.
right.
I'm still fallible, right? There are still
Mm-hmm,
things that I may experience in life that I'm not prepared for, that I will be challenged for.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There's this beautiful oracle card deck by a woman in the UK by the name of Josephine McCarthy. She's a very powerful magician. I don't know if she identifies herself as a witch, but a very powerful magician.
mm-hmm.
And so the oracle card that I pulled yesterday, but no, I was actually this morning. Time is a weird thing for me.
Right,
Uh, was endurance, and it talked about how in magic, right? Endurance, we often think of endurance in the like an exercise. Oh, I got to go
right.
farther. I got to go farther. But from a magic perspective, endurance is really this like strengthening to be able to prepare you to deal with the unforeseen things that may come up in your journey,
Mm-hmm,
right? And so I just I don't remember exactly what it was into this morning's poll, but it came up, and yeah, it's we we will be challenged. You know, I may have 5+ years in there. I may have done all of this shadow work, but I'm still a human. There are still things that I'm working through. They
mm-hmm,
call it a journey for a reason.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Truly. I love that. I love that you said we're fallible. It's such a beautiful reminder, right? Because again, holding up ourselves to a standard of perfectionism, and even for myself, being in mindfulness, sunshine, I've actually had people, for some reason, they have, I don't know, they think being mindful or a mindful teacher, that you should know better at all given times, as if I'm not human, right? But the self awareness is just self awareness, has nothing to do with being perfect at every given moment. And um, it brought back a little of the witch wound, because it kind of felt that way. Like, how dare you? You should know better. You should, because you are this. And I thought, wow, it's still an attack no matter what I do. Interesting.
I have a shirt that says perfectly imperfect.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's the only perfect there is
Mm,
it perfectly imperfect, right?
right.
It doesn't
Truly.
exist otherwise.
At all. And so it's interesting because people that, throw rocks at us, don't realize that you're just as human and fallible as the rest of us, and here you're throwing rocks at us when we're not trying to change anyone. We're trying to just do our best for ourselves. And as you know, in osmosis, hopefully the people around you do start to see that and start to do their thing, and be that supportive system and community that you deserving of while we're going through our journeys, right? So it is interesting that that comes back, that the rock throwing still happens no matter what it is. As long as you're, I feel like, as a woman, like, throw rocks at her. She's a slut, she's a.
We it's easier to judge other people than to look in the mirror
Mm,
and face the truth of ourselves most of the
mm-hmm.
time,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so there's a lot of people that are just hurt in this world.
Yeah.
And the way that they protect themselves often is through that judgment.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to look at myself, I got to accept that I'm hurt,
Yeah.
accept that it happened to me, accept that I'm the only one that has the ability to fix it,
Yeah.
right? And it's just easier sometimes to play the victim.
It is. So for those, since you've have an upbringing in Catholicism, I'm sure you're well aware. Have you had anyone ask you about, obviously, your witchcraft, a religious person, and stating that, what is your thoughts on this? I had someone, I have a book of witchcraft as well. Myself, I have a few. This religious person had stated something in regards to that, you, when you're doing these practices, you're not trusting God. But again, for this person, it's their God, right? This personification of their God, that we're not trusting that space. How do you handle when someone's saying, basically, you're not saying I'm all in with the light, but sometimes here and sometimes there, so it kind of makes you it makes you, what's the word, like, we're in a spiritual war, right? So if you're not here, then you're bound to be going into the dark, or you just can't be trusted in the table per se.
You know, it's so hard. It's such a hard argument, right?
Mm, mm,
Because to me, in that particular conversation, the most important thing for them is to believe what they need to believe.
yeah.
So for them, that's a truth, right?
Yes.
If they were to waver, if they were to falter, it would
Mhm.
make them susceptible to possession, to be overcome by low energetics, like all of these things,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, thank you. I'm so glad that you believe that and believe strongly. And it's so important for you to believe that.
Yeah.
But in my world, in my belief, in my relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
him and I have an agreement, him and
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
understand what it is that I need to do in my role. And
Right.
frankly, at the end of the day, when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to,
Mm.
religions that follow, the Christian path, even Jesus did not judge.
Right.
God still said,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is
Right.
between you and I, not you and them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for anybody to cast judgment or to state anything about anyone else and how they're choosing to have their relationship,
Right.
uh, it just that's we go right back into that conversation about the patriarch, about the
Mm-hmm.
toxic masculine
Mm-hmm.
energy. That's
Mm-hmm.
just another person showing up with control.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my
Mm-hmm.
definition of evil is when one individual tries to control another individual,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Even
And so
with
if
their
you're,
own beliefs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean that's the we want to get into that. The devil has done a really great job when he's got folks trying to judge other humans.
Mm-hmm. Truly. Truly.
He's done a really good job when
Mm-hmm.
he's got humans judging other humans, because the only person that can truly judge is the one above, right? If that's your
100%.
belief, that's who's judging.
That's who's judging. Not you shouldn't cast judgment because even
No,
if you don't agree, right? Even if the
right.
religious, for those listeners out there, if you're religious and you don't agree with witches or wizards, just stay out of it. That's not for you to. That's not for you. Then don't be in that community. Don't befriend us. Don't ask us for herbal medicine because that's also part of it. It's a lot that we provide that you fail to see. And even the religious people that get tarot readings, don't be the hypocrite. Just if you're gonna stay with your beliefs, just stay in that space and don't cast judgment. I love that you said that because it's really important to see that the devil does sneak in so many ways that people don't see how and what you say, how you think, and how you act. It is remarkable when someone is also trying to put themselves in a pedestal because they are in a religious faction versus us having our own relationship with the universe, with our God, with however you relate to the energy. That is, again, we're actually going straight to source and coming back with the information. And most people have to go through a middleman to get source
You
to come
choose
into.
to.
Right, they
You
choose
choose
to.
to. Yeah. And that's where I think it's, again, like if we would go back to how I defined what a witch is,
Mm,
right? The psychic arts. If you're praying, guess what? You've got a
mm-hmm,
belief in psychic arts.
mm-hmm,
Okay. If you are
true.
praying, you
Mm-hmm,
have a belief in psychic arts because you believe that your energetic can speak to, right? And that you're
mm-hmm,
going to be shown, like, there are a lot of prayers. Show me what I need to do, God. Show me what I need to do,
mm-hmm.
Jesus. Right? Like that is
Right.
a psychic, magic. You praying again, right?
Mm,
You are
mm,
saying your Our Fathers, your Hail Marys. That is
mm.
a proclamation of magic. That is an intention you're setting out. And I don't know a single Christian, a good Christian, that would argue with being of service to other people,
A
right?
hundred
So, I mean,
percent right. Yeah,
yeah, there's
truly.
a lot more witches out there operating than they want to recognize. That's for damn
Truly.
sure.
Since we're on the topic, what other things that you can reference that are very similar to, sorry, I'm in Los Angeles, so there's gonna be a lot of that. What other similarities that you see for those that are unaware, right? Because it just, most people are, I'm not, again, not judgment, it's just observation. You just seeing what you believe in, and it doesn't always have to be Christianity. There's so many other
You
religions,
know,
but what are other
so
similarities that they don't
so
realize?
one of the biggest ones
Mm,
is you'll have a lot of folks, and we're going to talk. I'm talking about more of the Christian. It's more the dominant
right,
religion,
it
here
is.
in the United States.
Yeah.
Even if you look into the Muslims, if you look into the Jewish, there's this flavor that I'm about to talk to, and it's often the belief of like an angel or
Mm-hmm.
other like angelic type of beings, other
Right.
type of beings that are out there. And, even if you're believing in the one God, so to speak, in a monotheistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you are still believing that you could pray to an angel, you could pray
Mm-hmm.
to a saint, you could pray to any of these
Mm-hmm.
is the same concept
Mm-hmm.
of anybody that identifies as pagan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the same exact concept. It's just you've chosen to externalize that one,
Right.
right? That higher, that one monotheistic God. But there's a lot of the spiritual practices of, you know, I don't know if the law of one actually talks about it specifically in this perspective, but there's a lot of the um, old magical orders and things that start talking about like we are the Hermetic principles, like
Mm-hmm.
God
Mm-hmm.
exists within us,
Yes.
right?
Right.
God exists, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the one is in present in us,
Right.
right? And so it's not really very different, you know. Our idea of one is slightly different, but
Yeah.
when you are talking to saints or angels or
Mm-hmm.
anything of that nature, it's very similar. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, the prayers, mass, I mean, I'm telling you, I've never seen a more elaborate ritual, public ritual, than a Catholic mass. I just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was baptized, I did first communion, I did
Mm-hmm.
confirmation. These are rites of initiation
They are. Right. Yeah.
in a
And
magical
right.
order. Those are rites of initiation.
Mm-hmm. In a magical order, yes. And even the
Priesthood.
the priesthood, I mean, when they come in, right, they use incense to
Yep.
clear the energy. Like it's
They
all
light
ritualistic.
candles.
They light
Multiple different
candles.
different colored candles mean different things during
Mm-hmm.
whichever the holidays are. I
Right.
mean,
And even
I'm
they're
just like,
dressed by the colors on
yes,
that
yes,
time.
yes. I'm always just like, I'm always so fascinated. I'm just like, you silly witches out there, just call it Catholicism, okay?
Right, because it's the same. As I got older and I went back to accompany a friend for a baptism, and I was honest. I was like, just so you know, I'll be at the back of the church. I'm here to accompany you because you didn't want to drive by yourself. But I won't be doing prayers or standing up or doing the things or whatever is required. I'm just here for your company, to keep you company. And so just sitting there, I was like looking at everything in different eyes, in a different perspective. I'm like, I know that. Oh, I know this. Oh, Egyptians had that. Oh, and that came from there. And then it's just,
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't see it before. Wow, this is intriguing. 'Cause I have not stepped into a church prior to that in decades. Um, but it
Love
is.
the church now. Now, as like, you know, a recovering Catholic and somebody that has come, I have a lot of respect, a lot of reverence for pretty much every formal religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are politics in the Catholic Church and some of the churches that dilute a lot of, but I think it's beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's very, very beautiful. A lot of the rituals that are associated to it, but that's where it's so hard when, you know, you ask that question around, like, what do I say to somebody that says this? And it's
Yeah,
just, don't judge,
don't
right?
judge.
Don't like, that is, that is the least Christian thing to do, is to, there is some, I forget which religion specifically actually states that every individual has the obligation to prophesize, right, and try to
Mm-hmm.
convert. I forget which one it is. But you know, no, for as long as we are all loving,
Yeah,
kind,
yeah.
compassionate,
Mm-hmm.
caring.
Yes, that's it.
Hmm.
That's really all it is. We just want everyone to be in their heart space.
Yeah.
I talk about most people are in their minds, and the ego just throws you in for a loop, and you're just so lost, and you can't find yourself back here. And that's all we are asking for. And right, and as the baseline to all the things that we do in general, any religion, any spiritual practice is just that. Like, just come from here and just know, your laws, your consequences, own up, accountability, responsibility, all the wonderful adult things. um but let's get into a little bit more of what you are doing with your beautiful witchcraft, and how you are able to help others as well with the sobriety aspect that you've incorporated to your practice. What can people expect if they decide to work with you, and what you offer for your community?
Yeah, well, I still work with individuals one on one, and at
Hmm.
that point, you get to tap into any of my gifts,
Nice.
right? So I'm a psychic medium, a soul healer, Reiki Master. So that's always a really beautiful thing, and a lot of times where people start with me, right? They
Hmm.
want to be able to work, and that's rightfully so. You know, if you're venturing down a journey where you're going to completely transform your life, it's easier to put your toe in it than to jump in head first.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's a really wonderful thing. But I also have a full community of individuals that identify as a witch and have either are trying to step into or are actively in recovery.
Beautiful.
And this to me is some of the most powerful and beautiful work that I do, because the magic isn't just coming from me, it's coming from everybody sharing,
Yeah.
right? There's something incredibly beautiful about this community when everybody is willing to kind of admit to their own imperfections,
Mm.
right? To let go of that judgment,
Mm-hmm.
right? To see each other for just the beautiful humans, imperfect humans that we are. The
Right.
amount of healing that gets to show up for every individual.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Because then it's like giving them, not that the people need it, but feeling comfortable and safe gives them permission to now be themselves.
Well, it's where the transformation starts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we gather all together as like-minded individuals, and now we start working on things like deepening our psychic gifts,
Mm.
practicing them,
Mm-hmm.
engaging in them in a deeper basis, so that we can use it as a tool on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? Learning how to incorporate magic into that every day, because
Mm-hmm.
every single thing that we do, from the moment that we wake up and put our feet on the ground to the moment our head hits the pillow, can be infused with magic,
Truly.
right? and
Mm-hmm.
then and then learning these things and being at that point, and it just the, there's this natural desire that shows up of being able to gift it to others,
Mm-hmm.
right? To
Mm-hmm.
be of service, to show,
Yes.
right? To be able to help those individuals that you love. Like I said, whether it's your children and your family, or if it's your community and the folks that you're here to serve,
Yep.
but you get to see all of this transformation. And I, I've been running this group program in some way, shape, or form for, it's going on 3.5 years, but we only recently in this last year focused on the recovery aspect. I added
Mm.
all of the recovery stuff in.
Wow.
And I'm watching these people that have been with me for years start to see their own like shifts and change for the first time, because they're
Mm.
starting to realize,
Mm-hmm.
right, like how powerful a mentality, a spiritual embracing, a like physical act of being in recovery truly is. Like
Yeah.
how much it allows them the permission to let go of who they once were
Mm.
in order to embrace who they're really truly meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's powerful work because it's really difficult to do that on your own.
Oh,
To
hard.
just even having the acknowledgement of seeing yourself and know that you have to let go of certain aspect habits and things that no longer work because you're asking for something greater. And to do that, I'm speaking from experience, to do that by yourself, it's so you become more fallible, I feel, because you don't have the support in the community to help keep like 1 inch today, 2 inches tomorrow, right? Versus you have your own accountable partner. That's really difficult. And I'm sure the attachments, I'm like, she's by
It's
herself.
slower.
It's
The
slower,
reality is it's slower when you're by yourself. When
much
you're with a
slower.
community, you get the mirrors put up in front of you,
Hmm.
right? You get to see, oh, wow, you did it this way. You did it that way. Wow, I'm not alone. Okay, it doesn't have to be that
Mm.
hard. Oh, I'm doing this to myself,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
it's slower. So when you have a community that you're able to do the healing with, to step into recovery, to stay in recovery, to do that deeply transformative work, it comes it comes a lot faster. The joy and the reward
Mm.
comes much quicker.
In the past 5 years that you've been in this different space, right? This new place in your life, what is one thing, or maybe you have more than one thing that you feel that you've just been so surprised by yourself of self of what you've been able to do, the one few things that you're like, oh my god, I didn't know that I could XYZ or be able to do or become.
I'm always surprised at the psychic abilities. Like I'm always
Mhm.
kind of surprised at that, right? It
Same,
doesn't
yeah.
matter that I've been doing it professionally. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like I'm always, people are like, oh, they'll come back to me like, this really happened or that really happened, and I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, that's so cool. Uh, but the
Yeah.
inner thing that I'm most kind of in awe of is I don't get angry.
Mm.
And even when even when I feel the rumbles of what I would
Mm-hmm.
call anger, I know there's like, I know there's something I'm hiding, right? And so
Mm.
I get this like this alarm of be truthful, be truthful, be truthful, and yeah, my ability to be able to navigate my own emotions in an honest and an open fashion, uh, that to me is what I'm in awe about almost every day.
Oh.
How much that internal transformation now gets to show up for me, my relationships, and everything that
Mm.
I do.
Yeah, that's a big one because alcoholism drives an anger.
Mhm.
That's really big. Wow, that's so beautiful. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Oh, wow. I am in awe of this conversation. It's been beautiful. We've broken down a few barriers. I'm sure this is your daily thing. But in my podcast, I try to bring different perspectives. So we keep breaking down all these walls that divide us, and this as a woman is a big one. And that's why I really wanted you to come on and speak, share your voice and your experience, because it's so important for so many women out there, that feel lost, right? When especially with abilities that you don't know how, and then you just find an addiction to swallow it away. And while you were saying that too, I thought of the Native American community, because that's also, they struggle with alcoholism because they have the abilities, and this world does not allow for that space, right? Because we're not
Yeah.
going to get into that space. But I learned from this beautiful Native American who has this poet book, and I learned so much about that. And I was just thinking of them as well when you were saying them, like, oh my god, them too. But yeah, I'm with you on the surprise of the psychic abilities, even though I do it all the time. But when someone comes back, you're like, oh, cool, awesome. I'm just channeling what they're
I
telling
know,
me.
I know.
Right? It's not
It's
me.
exactly what it is.
I don't know. If you ask me, like, hey, Fred went to the store. What did he buy? I don't know. Spirit, what did he buy? Bananas. Oh, he said bananas. So that's the kid. Because we don't know. I don't know who Fred is. But I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm always like, okay, cool. I don't.
Oh, all the time, all the time. I'm just like, that's interesting. Okay, yep,
Yeah, truly.
cool.
Amazing. So I will make sure that I put in all your links. It's going to be on YouTube, and the recording will be on Spotify and iTunes. And any woman, or you, do you actually have men in your
I,
community?
yeah, to me, yeah,
Hey.
a witch is a witch, and it is neither masculine nor feminine.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's what do
Our
you identify
wizards,
as?
our
Yeah,
wizards
yeah,
need help
yeah,
too, for
yeah,
sure. Because there's a lot of men who also tapped into their feminine energy that are able to
yeah.
be the.
My partner's heavily in the program. He is he's a man, and so he's active. I've got a couple other male friends that are active as well, and I love it because to me it's a beautiful representation
Mm,
of what it looks like when a man is willing to embrace their feminine. Because if you truly are embracing psychic abilities and these gifts, and you are embracing your feminine energy, so I
mm.
adore it a lot, a
Oh,
lot.
that's so beautiful. I'm gonna have to check it out because it sounds beautiful. Oh, I love that it's both. Oh, it's
Hmm.
amazing. My beautiful sunshine. What is one thing that you can share with the listener that they should take home with? What anything that you shared today that you feel that is important that they need to know?
My favorite thing, because this is a common question, and I
Mm,
always say, I'll let spirit say if there's anything else, but it often comes down to this: you always have a choice.
mm,
Your life is made up of a whole millions and millions of choices. Every moment is a choice, and you get to choose happiness, you get to choose joy, you get to choose a life of ease, you get to choose to step into recovery, you get to
yeah.
choose to face your demons, right?
Mm,
make a choice, because
Mm-hmm.
by not making a choice, you still are.
Yeah, very important. Very important. That last piece. Yes, you still are. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on today
Oh,
and
you're welcome,
sharing your
Claudia.
beautiful light and energy and all the goodies. Um, yeah, truly grateful. I appreciate you so, so much. And for the listeners out there, thank you all for listening and also collaborating with us. And, if this came your way, maybe there's something here for you, or if you know of anyone that could may resonate with Sunshine and may need her help or assistance or guidance or community, please share. And as always, just remember that the breath is the secret and always lead with love. And until next time, we'll see you all then. Thank you all for joining. Bye.